You know what's strange? We usually talk about age like it's a number on a birthday cake, as if everyone who is 25, 30, or 40 is emotionally living in the same year. But some people carry themselves like they have already lived three different lives. They're young, but tired in a way that doesn't feel young. They laugh, they work, they function, but somewhere inside they feel like the oldest person in the room. Stay with me because what I'm about to tell you will completely change how you see people who feel older than their age. You've felt it in small moments. You're at a table with people your age, and everyone is talking about drama, parties, random gossip, who's dating who unfollowed who. The room is loud. Someone's phone keeps buzzing against the table. There's music playing in the background, that artificial kind of loudness that makes conversation feel like a competition. And you're sitting there smiling just enough to not seem rude, but inside you're somewhere else. You notice things other people don't seem to notice: the tired eyes behind someone's joke, the tension in a couple's silence, the way people chase attention and call it fun. You go home, take off your shoes, and feel relief the second the door closes, not because you hate people, but because being around certain kinds of noise makes you feel like you've already outgrown a room you were technically supposed to belong in. Psychologists call one part of this subjective age. It means the age you feel on the inside, not the age written on your ID. And here's what's fascinating: subjective age isn't just a poetic idea, researchers actually study it. A 2018 paper by Seyul Kwok and colleagues in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience found that older adults who felt younger than their actual age showed younger predicted brain age and larger gray matter volume in certain brain regions. Now, that doesn't mean every young person who feels old has an old brain. Please don't hear that and panic. It means your felt age can be connected to how your mind tracks energy, stress, health, memory, and identity. Think of it like your phone battery. Two phones can be the same model, bought the same year, but one has been running too many apps in the background. Same age. Different drain. This is why you might look young but feel mentally exhausted. Your body says we're early in the story. Your nervous system says, actually, we've been managing a lot for a long time. And that's usually the first clue. People who feel older than their age often aren't obsessed with being mature. They just had to become observant early. They learned how to read rooms before they learned how to relax in them. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, a state where your nervous system keeps scanning for danger, tension, mood shifts, or emotional changes. It's common in people who grew up around unpredictability, not always obvious trauma. Sometimes it was a parent whose mood controlled the house. Sometimes it was money stress. Sometimes it was being the easy child who didn't want to cause problems. Research on adverse childhood experiences, including the landmark ACE study by Filidi and colleagues in 1998, showed that early stress is linked with long-term effects on health and emotional functioning, and later trauma research has connected life adversity with feeling subjectively older. Here's the thing nobody tells you: when you spend your early years emotionally monitoring everyone else, childhood doesn't feel like childhood. It feels like management. You become good at predicting reactions, good at staying quiet, good at sensing when something is about to go wrong. And then people your age seem carefree, and you wonder, why can't I be like that? But your brain didn't get trained in carefree. It got trained in preparation. So now, even when life is calm, part of you is still waiting for the next emotional bill to arrive. Another piece of this is called parentification. Family therapists Ivan Buzzer-Menyinaji and Geraldine Spark wrote about this in the 1970s, and later researchers like Gregory Yurkovich studied how children sometimes take on adult emotional or practical roles too early. Parentification can look like taking care of siblings, calming a parent down, translating adult problems, becoming the responsible one, or feeling guilty for having needs. And here's the kicker: parentified kids often get praised. You're so mature. You're wise beyond your years. You're not like other kids. At the time, it sounds like a compliment. But sometimes it means you learn to disappear so other people could stay comfortable. That's why, as an adult, you may feel older around people who are simply acting their age. Their spontaneity can irritate you. Their messiness can feel unsafe. Their emotional impulsiveness can make you want to leave the room. Not because you're superior, but because part of you associates immaturity with danger. If nobody was allowed to fall apart safely in your world, then watching people be careless can feel physically uncomfortable. It's like being the designated driver of life. Everyone else gets to be loud, messy, emotional, experimental. You stay aware, you check the exits, you remember the time, you make sure nothing goes too far. And after years of doing that, of course you feel older. You weren't aging faster, you were carrying responsibility earlier. But wait, it gets weirder because feeling older isn't always about pain. Sometimes it's about time perspective. Psychologist Laura Carstenson's socioemotional selectivity theory says that when people perceive time as limited, they start prioritizing emotionally meaningful experiences over exploration novelty and shallow social rewards. This is often studied in older adults, but the mechanism can show up earlier if your life made you aware of endings too soon. Maybe you lost someone young. Maybe you watched a family break apart. Maybe you had to move, start over, or survive something that made the future feel less guaranteed. Suddenly, your mind doesn't want chaos for the sake of chaos. It wants depth. It wants peace. It wants conversations that feel real. This is why you might not understand people who live like time is unlimited. You don't want to waste a whole weekend proving you belong to people you don't even trust. You don't want 10 shallow friendships when two honest ones would feed your soul. You don't want noise just to avoid silence. Your inner timeline is different, and to some people, that makes you seem boring, too serious, too intense, too hard to impress. But really, your priorities shifted. You're not trying to be old. You're trying to be honest about what actually gives you life. There is also a body layer here, and psychologists and neuroscientists often talk about it through allostatic load. Bruce McEwen, in a highly cited 1998 New England Journal of Medicine paper, described allostatic load as the wear and tear that builds up when the stress response has to keep turning on again and again. Stress is useful in short bursts, it helps you adapt. But when your body keeps adapting without enough recovery, it starts to feel like you're carrying invisible weight. This is why emotional exhaustion can feel like age. Your shoulders are tense, your sleep is light, your patience is shorter than it used to be. Your brain wants quiet. You don't bounce back from conflict as quickly. And you start saying things like, I feel 80, even when you're nowhere close. But here's where it gets important. Feeling older than your age can become a beautiful form of depth, or it can become a prison. The healthy version is discernment. You know what matters. You don't chase every trend. You protect your peace. You choose people carefully. You understand that not every invitation is a blessing. The trauma version is different. The trauma version says, I can't relax because something will go wrong. It says, I don't need anyone, when really you learned needing people was risky. It says, I'm mature, when underneath there's a younger part of you that never got to be silly, needy, protected, or held. For some people, this isn't wisdom. It's grief wearing a calm face. And if that lands a little too hard, breathe for a second. Because the point isn't to shame the way you adapted. The point is to notice whether your maturity is serving your life or quietly stealing it. You're not broken. You're wired for depth over noise. You're not boring. You're selective because your nervous system learned the cost of giving access to the wrong people. You're not too old for your age. You're someone whose inner world had to develop early, and now your task is not to become younger by force. It's to let the younger parts of you finally come back into the room. That might look simple: laughing without checking who's judging, resting without earning it first, letting someone take care of you without feeling useless, saying yes to something playful, not because it's productive, but because you were never meant to be only responsible. The goal isn't to become carefree in the way other people are. Maybe that's not your personality. Maybe your gift is noticing, feeling, understanding, seeing beneath the surface. But depth should not cost you aliveness. Wisdom should not require emotional exile. Some people feel older because they are old souls. Some feel older because they were handed adult weight with child-sized hands. And some are both. They learned too much too early, but they also learned how to see life with unusual tenderness. So if you've always felt older than your age, maybe the question isn't, what's wrong with me? Maybe the quieter question is, what part of me had to grow up too soon, and what part is still waiting to be invited back? Because maybe maturity was never the problem. Maybe the problem was having to earn childhood after it was already over.